Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another week, another episode of After Dark. My name is Eric Newell. I will be your host tonight, and we are excited to be here. I have a couple of panelists with me, and we are going to be getting into all the latest in the movie world, including, as the title says, talking about DC FanDome as well as the Oscars. And there is Matt ruining the camera shot. Let's go ahead and intro our panelists. Who fucking cares? We have Mr. Beer, who joins us this week. We are Nicky-less. Last week we were beerless, but we do have beer back this week. How's it going, man?
It's going all right. Draft just ended for the NFL, so that's always a fun time for me because now I get to hear every fan base complain about why their GM should be fired. So it's a great time.
It's nice to know, as someone who's a Premier League fan, that's universal through all sports. Everybody just wants their owners gone.
Oh, yeah.
That's nice to know that that's a universal thing. Fuck the Super League. I'll go ahead and introduce. He's right below me, cashing in the prize he won through our little Schmo Talks competition that we did. If I remember correctly, it was either third place or tied for second. I don't remember. All that stuff's gone out of my computer. But Mr. JD Domash joins us on the show for the first time. JD, how's it going, man?
Hey, it's going good. I'm a huge Chargers fan, so they keep on teasing us, only to completely ruin us in the playoffs. I feel that's worse than just being bad.
I mean, you guys got a great offensive tackle, so now your quarterback can stay protected.
Problem is our quarterback retired, so there's
Justin Herbert.
Yeah. Well,
he's had a great year last year.
Yeah, as said, they just keep on teasing us, and then they just completely blow it in the playoffs. We'll see what happens this year.
Yeah.
Anyways, it was second place.
There it is. Loving the positivity here, guys. So let's go ahead and get into it. And thankfully, we will be able to keep some positivity because it's DC without the Snyderverse, as I said, and I'll address it in the brief video when we get there. Obviously, everything Snyderverse is very speculative. There's not a lot of grounding in this, but as we will get into, there are a lot, and I did some research for this, there are a lot of projects that are on the table at DC, and these aren't the ones like Joker and Harley Quinn that got announced 5 years ago and just never actually got canceled. These are the ones that are like really do have something there, and the talks have been really actively going, and there's a lot there. So we'll go ahead and get into that and kind of discuss what can happen at DC FanDome when it goes live later this year. But first, let's intro it. This week, after the mostly successful event they held last year, DC announced they'd be returning with the second annual DC FanDome, which will take place this year on October 16th, 2021. The event will be a digital event in which DC will have the chance to do all things, including digital panels, pre-recorded segments, and special events in a Comic-Con style event centered around all things DC. This is the perfect opportunity for us to have the discussion on the future of DC films outside of the possible returning of the Snyderverse and what they actually have in line and what could be discussed at DC FanDome. That being said, rather than taking time to rattle off all the options here, let's go back to the panel for the active discussion. There we go. And the tragic cutting myself off too early because I mistimed the exit. Who cares at this point? But yeah, so let's go ahead and get into it. So I did a decent amount of research here, and I was able to break some stuff down. And in the middle of doing the research, I actually had a piece of news break related to one of these movies, which was rather interesting. So we'll go ahead and get into it. So obviously, the first big thing here that I pulled up, just the first movie that came to my head, was Matt Reeves' The Batman. Now, last year at DC FanDome was where we got our first look at the film. We got that little teaser that came out. It's hard to call a 2.5-minute thing a teaser, but it was technically a teaser of the film. And so that footage came out there. DC FanDome, as I said, will be taking place in October of 2021. The Batman releases, if it stays on schedule, releases on March 4th next year, which means October would be a perfect time to start getting the marketing campaign ramped up for it. And so I think there is a very high possibility that we will get our first full trailer for the film that really explains more of the plot and what's happening in the film during this year's DC FanDome. Another project that's related to it, so I'm chucking it in here with this one, is there is the and they haven't titled it, but there's the Gotham Police Department spinoff that they're making for HBO Max, which is said to be focusing on, the film takes place during Batman's second year as Batman, but the show is set to take place during his first year as Batman, but it'll focus more on the GCPD itself and its kind of relation in events to what Batman is doing. They've already come out more than once and had to kind of swat away fears that it'll kind of become like a Gotham. They have said that it'll be something very different, and they have lots of writers working on it who have worked for other big previous shows for HBO, including stuff like Oz and The Sopranos and things like that, people working on this show. So I'll go to Matt first. What do you think of the odds on are that we do get something from the Batman?
I think it's very likely because I believe they finished filming and
they are
like a month ago or whatever. So when is DC FanDome?
October 16th, I believe.
Okay, so I was going to throw a theory out there, and I guess that doesn't work. I was going to say, what if they announced that it comes out in October again during FanDome, but wouldn't make sense.
I mean, week release?
Yeah, 1 week. Hey. I mean, wouldn't that be a surprise? But no, now that it's now that I know DC is in October, that's probably not going to happen. I think we're definitely going to get another trailer. I think that's highly likely. I think out of anything, that would be the one that would get the trailer out of any of the other projects they have coming, and I'm sure it'll be more than just that gets a trailer. But yeah, I think we're going to see footage. I think we're going to get maybe more than just a trailer. Maybe we get a clip or two as well. I think they're going to really go in with this movie.
Like really start putting. Yeah,
yeah,
you're right. And that's exactly why, like, when I was putting the list together, like the first thing I gravitated to is this, because I'm just like, this is your blockbuster movie, especially with, everything that has happened with the Snyderverse and the groundswell that's come back in support of Ben Affleck's Batman. This is a movie you're going to want to push and kind of you're almost to some extent with some fans going to have to prove like, nope, this is the direction you want to go with it. Not everyone's just going to be sold on theory. And so I agree with you 100%. JD, what are your kind of thoughts on what we could see for the Batman?
I definitely think we're getting another trailer. I don't think it's actually going to be the first full-length trailer. I think actually we'll probably get the first one over the summer. I think we'll get the second full-length trailer, which is second of three. Obviously, you'll get the third one once we get closer to release. I also do think, I don't know about several clips. I do think we'll get kind of one kind of big sequence potentially, kind of Christopher Nolan used to do with those big prologues. I think we'll just get kind of one.
Well, with Tenet, yeah, I mean with Tenet with the Rise of Skywalker, we got the first 7 minutes of the film. Like essentially that whole opera sequence was attached to the start of the movie.
I also think you'll probably get some announcements about the TV series. I don't know if you'll get any footage from the TV series, but they said Gordon is going to be a central role in it. And
yeah, so that
sounds a lot like the Gotham Central comic book series, which was basically this adjacent series that happened around Batman, and you get a lot of these perspectives of people who don't really like Batman, or kind of think he's going against the law and kind of taking law into his own hands. So I feel like you're going to get a lot of interesting stuff with that. I feel like, as I said, you're going to get a lot of announcements for that, maybe how many episodes it is, particularly when it comes to that front.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I didn't bring it up only because that was one of the things that came up in my research. So as of now, it is highly speculated that Jeffrey Wright will return as Gordon in the show. However, it is technically not something DC has confirmed. Part of me believes I don't think he'll be the central figure of the show, if only because I think at this point they realize, again, it's kind of a you have to, even though you have a dedicated audience, you almost seem like you have to sell them on your product even more. I feel like if another show about Gotham Police where Jim Gordon is the lead were to happen, it is just going to get compared to Gotham, whether that's fair or not. So I could see them making him a big piece of it while not making him the central character.
That's what I meant by
literally follow him.
That's what I meant by a central role. That's kind of what I meant.
Right.
I mean, like, he's not going to be the lead, but he's going to be like kind of a key fixture, and I think that's gonna...
Right. And the other thing with this show is, and again, this is all hearsay because there's no confirmation from it, and I think this is a lot of what we'll get at DC FanDome, is with the show, there's even rumors that have circulated that apparently they're playing with the idea, depending on Pattinson's availability, of bringing Batman into the show. Like, they're not scared to go there, whereas Gotham never really seemed to want to go there, especially with the biggest of characters in his lore. Like, you got Jerome and whatever the fuck the other one's name was that Cameron Monaghan played. You never got the Joker. You got, we're bouncing around it. You know, you never got Batman. You got Kitty Bruce, who went through puberty and put on a mask. Like, you never got there, seemingly, but they kind of hinted it. I don't think they're going to be scared to go there with this show, which I think will be a benefit.
Yeah, I definitely, like, I think, especially if the kind of one of your key points is how much, and again, from like the basic synopsis that they gave last year when they announced it, like, they basically said, like, a whole, like, the main guys, they hate Batman. So if it's all about this distrust of Batman, I don't know how you can't not bring Batman into it.
Yeah. So the other big project that I'm going to talk about separately, because I think this will be the other thing we'll really get a push for at DC FanDome, is the Suicide Squad will already be in theaters, but we do know for a fact that we are getting a Peacemaker HBO series. Now, it was confirmed very recently that series will actually air in January of 2022. TV does not need nearly as much time as film in terms of marketing. So I actually think this would be a perfect time to drop that trailer, because Suicide Squad releases the beginning of August. So 2 months later, it'll be nearing the end of its normal 3-month theatrical run. You'll be at like 10 weeks out of an average of 12 if we're cutting it at 3 weeks for the normal run. So you'll be at 10 weeks out of 12. Most people will have seen it. At least the people who are paying attention to DC FanDome will probably have seen it. And I think this will be a great time to finally be like, okay, whatever's in the series that may play into Suicide Squad that we wanted to hide for spoiler reasons, now we can go there. Boom, here's your trailer. And I think that's a very good possibility.
I also, for me too, I think another possibility, it's not going to be a huge thing, but I do think you're going to get your first look at the Flash. Like, you're going to get, like, basically the same kind of... I think you're going to get this.
I was going to get there.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll get there. Don't worry. Matt, what JD as well? What are your guys' thoughts on Peacemaker, if you have any?
I don't know. I got to see John Cena as Peacemaker in the show. I don't know who Peacemaker is. What's a Peacemaker? I don't know.
He's a man, according to the trailer, that would, I don't know, take like a bag of dicks or something if he had to for.
So he likes dicks,
whatever the joke was. Yeah.
Okay, so he's a dick lover. That's nice. No, I mean, I like John Cena. I mean, he's the Dollar Tree version of The Rock when it comes to Hollywood, but I like him. And that's not a bad thing.
I know.
He wants to be like The Rock, so there you go. He's kind of stupid bug caught you in the ear. But yeah, I have no idea, so I need to see him in the movie.
Fair enough.
I think I like John Cena, his comedic chops. I feel like his comedic chops are pretty good. When he tries to do dramatic and be the action star, I'm not 100% sold on that kind of stuff. But when he was like in Blockers, I really liked him in Blockers. So, and that seems to be more in that vein, at least more like that. So I'm kind of interested. Basically, he's basically, from my understanding, he's basically like he's willing to do the extremes for just to do justice for America. So he's like macho patriotism to the nth degree is kind of like his whole spiel.
Right.
I said this before. I said this when the first trailer came out. I'm kind of eating my words about it. I thought that the Peacemaker was going to go out, was going to be one of the ones that was going to go out fairly early. I'm still going to stick to it. I think he's going to be gone by like the second act. I feel like he's going to be dead by the second act. Like he's going to have a pretty major, like they're going to feature him pretty heavily in the first act, and then like beginning mid second act, he's going to die like in a dramatic fashion. But I'm preparing based on the trailers and how heavily they're featuring him. I'm preparing to eat my words on that.
The only reason I disagree is because, and we did this when we broke down the trailer on the show. You can see him. There's a shot of like 5 of them left running when Starro is walking through the city. He's one of the 5 or 6 that's there.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way that scene is not the third act. So I mean,
I'm prepared to eat my words. I thought at one point I thought he wasn't going to make it past the first act, and I'm kind of slowly moving my bench point back. So I'm prepared to eat my words. But at one point I didn't think he was going to go very early, based on how hard they were featuring him.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that'd be the ballsier move to kill some, and they may do it. You may never know, but I think it'd be a ballsier move to kill someone who you're putting emphasis on rather than like. I mean, let's start placing bets. How quickly does Pete Davidson die? 5 minutes? That all he gets, and then he's dead.
5-10 minutes tops.
I'd love for him to live longer because I actually like Pete Davidson. I'd be okay with that, but.
I feel like 5-10 minutes tops. I feel like,
because like to me, when Slipknot died in the first one, that was like a non sequitur. That was like no shit. The guy that's had 2 lines of dialogue and stood there like dude the whole time is the guy that goes out first, of course.
Yeah,
come on.
I think he dies in the beginning of the third act, the very beginning. I think Starro kills him there.
Starro kills Pete.
Yes.
I'd love for that. I'd love him to live.
I would.
That's how Starro enters.
I would love to see it. Here's why I don't like really think that, because you see him like walking around like you don't see him like anywhere like when they're storming the beach or anywhere like past that kind of point in any of the trailers that past that. Like he's there very early when they're like walking behind the thing, but I feel like as soon as they like storm the beach, whenever I feel like that's going to be like the kind of like big first set pieces, them storming the beach of I think it's like I want to say is it like Cuba or I forget, but whenever
it's in South America, but you're
when they storm the beach in whatever that island in South America is, I feel like that's when you're going to see a whole bunch of them die right there. So like you're going to just see like a whole bunch of them just go gone.
So we're gonna move on. The island's called Corto Maltese. So we'll move on. So up next here we go. So I'll go ahead and bring him in since we're in the middle. We're on a quick break here. Joining us on the show, glad to have him back once again, Mr. Malcolm Lay, fresh off of ranking. What was it? Directors, correct?
Best Director Oscar winners.
Be sure to check that out, guys. After the show, though, if you're watching, let's finish this and then go to that. Let's be respectful. Malcolm, thanks for being here, man. So we'll go ahead. So I'll give you the bigger topic first, just to throw out a quick opinion on before I bring up the next set of films. In my opinion, I think the easiest, if we're calling a shot here, the easiest shot to call is I think we'll get the first big The Batman trailer at DC FanDome, simply because it's at that point you're about 6 months out from the release of the film. I think especially because companies are really, and this is why if we get one over the summer, JD, I won't be shocked, but I think they're going to start reeling in marketing campaigns a little bit because they don't want to spend the money and then have to push the film if something goes horribly wrong between now and March. I think October would be a great place to start that campaign at an event where you can market that name on that trailer and you know you'll get eyes on it. Yeah. What are your thoughts? For you, Malcolm.
Yeah, this is one, like, when it comes to DC FanDome, I wouldn't be surprised if it does drop if we do get a Batman trailer earlier in the year. But I think at this stage, because for a lot of movies, we're not really getting a lot of trailers at the moment, just because a lot of things aren't really sure if we're going to get if the movies are staying to those dates yet. And I think they don't want to do what happened last year and have to spend a lot of money on marketing and then end up pushing it.
Right.
So a lot of things are probably going to slow down with marketing campaigns at the moment. But I do think we get a Batman trailer this year. So whether it be FanDome or whether it's earlier, then I don't think it's going to be later than that. So.
And I just think it doesn't cost that much to make a trailer, like just one trailer that you put in front of like whatever HBO Max's big, because remember they're doing hybrid releases. So they're going to go in theaters. So I feel like I wouldn't be shocked if they placed a Batman trailer in front of either, like Black Widow or, as I said, one of their big summer, I got to look at the calendar, whatever their big summer releases, like Into the Heights. I wouldn't be shocked.
I think that's the next one.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and move on. Matt, you can Miyagi that fly. I believe in you. Let's go ahead and move on. So then we have kind of the other films that are officially on DC's slate, right? We have The Flash and Black Adam, which are currently filming. And with Black Adam, there was a piece of casting news that for some reason I included at a later point in the video and not here, but we'll get there later. But so that movie's filming, so is The Flash. Based on simple release dates, Aquaman 2 and Shazam Fury of the Gods will either have just began filming or will probably not be filming that long after. Aquaman is December of 2022. Fury of the Gods is early 2023. I believe around that same March and April date that the first one came out during. Did you get it? What do you...
This is my cat that snuck into my room.
Oh, okay. So, Malcolm, I'll go to you first. What are your thoughts on kind of the other films hanging around? Do you think like the films that will... Because by October... If Flash and Adam aren't done filming, they'll be damn near finished. They'll be close. What do you think we'll see for any of those films?
I mean, I think we will probably get some kind of panel for them because they go. I mean, I think at this point, like when it comes to especially when it comes to the Flash, that people know it's been pushed so many times, people are starting to doubt whether it's going to happen or but it's just going to just walk off silently into the night. Just no one's going to talk about it again. So they're probably going to maybe do something there just to maybe show like do a panel just to go. We do still exist. We are still filming. Maybe they might have enough footage to be able to do a trailer or that. I don't know. I mean, Black Adam, I think if there is enough footage ready, I think we might get a trailer because I think that one is coming out next year, I think. But we might get some kind of teaser trailer and that for that maybe showing off like The Rock in his suit that's not just like a animated interpretation.
Right.
I do think we'll get something for Shazam Fury of Gods, even if it's just like a cast panel where they show off we get more information about the connection with Lucy Liu and Helen Mirren and all that. So
right. Yeah. And the only reason I'm not asking about panels is because anything I bring, with the exception of the like all these big ones, I just assume they're going to give panels to. If you have a film like I mean, Shazam has a full cast. We essentially have a full cast for the film without being anywhere near filming. So even if they're not filming at that point, like if you can't get your cast together to shoot something that's 20 minutes and upload it, then what are you doing? You know, I feel like they'll get something there at least. So you're absolutely right on that. Matt, I'll go to you next if your cat's not messing with you.
No, I kicked it out.
Okay. Not literally. We don't condone animal violence, but go ahead.
Yeah, we can go with that lie. But for me, I think we'll see something with Shazam. I don't think it's going to be a whole lot, but they might do something similar to what they did for Black Adam in the first one, where it's some like animated, like I guess sneak peek into what the story is going to be about, and maybe who some of the new characters are that are going to be in the movie. So I think we'll get something like that. Maybe if there's some more casting they got to announce, maybe we'll get something there. Maybe they'll tease The Rock, you know, something like that. I doubt that part happens, but something along those lines. I have a theory for Aquaman 2. I Miyagi the shit out of the fly. For Aquaman 2, I think we're going to get, if we get anything for Aquaman, an announcement of a new Mera, whether it's Emilia Clarke or it's somebody else. I feel like they're going to move on from Amber and they're going to recast and officially announce it there. That's why I don't think we've heard anything from Warner Brothers about whether she's even in the movie or not. I think, as far as we know, they've declined any comments.
I should say it. I unfortunately don't have the gentleman's, or actually maybe I do in the write-up. They recently added a cast member to Aquaman. Mm-hmm. It might have been one of the things that got skipped over last week for time. I forget his name, but it's a gentleman who was on Game of Thrones. They've added to the cast. In that announcement, they also confirmed that as of now, the only other cast members that are signed on officially are Jason Momoa, Yahya Mateen, and Amber Heard.
Okay.
Her name was included in it.
Okay. Yeah. I still think, because obviously she's signed on for it, because they probably signed because of Snyder when Justice League, they probably signed like a 6-movie deal, something like that. Because 3 Aquaman movies, maybe 3 Justice League movies if she was to appear in all of them. So I think that's why she originally signed on. But I still think, because I feel like the situation is so like ugly right now with everything. I feel like we're going to hear something. If there's a change in casting, we'll hear it at DC FanDome.
Part of me wonders if they are gonna get rid of her at this point, I haven't brought any of it up on the show only because a lot of the time when it's, you know, in learning to kind of pare back the news and really bring actual news to the show, a lot now of an actor just going, oh, I'm excited for this and that. I don't put that on anymore because again, there's usually not a lot of real news in it. True. She's been speaking a lot about it, and it's very clear that whatever they are doing, she is involved in. Yeah. I seriously, I think if it's not done at DC FanDome, then I think she's in it, and that's that. They've made clearly whatever they know, they've made their own decision. Right. And if that decision was boot both or boot Johnny, keep her, that's their decision.
True.
Any thoughts on the 4 movies, JD, before we move on?
I get first on the Matt pod. I do, unfortunately. I'm kind of with you. I wish they would kind of move on from Amanda Heard because it's very ugly, but I don't think they are. Again, especially with the kind of the Ezra Miller, the video came out, and then they're continuing on with them. It just seems like they're gonna pretend that like we're gonna move on with Amber Heard. We're gonna pretend none of that stuff's going on. That's kind of been their MO with a lot of it besides Johnny Depp for some reason.
Which, to be fair, and this is something I've wondered, part of me wonders if it's not Warner making the calls, it's they're leaving it up to the people in charge of those particular franchises. Because the other case that you just explicitly named is also for a DC film. Mm-hmm. He's also in the Fantastic Beasts film, so that's not completely fair. But in terms of the Amber Johnny thing, I wonder if they just left it up to the heads of the franchise, because the people that are directly in charge of Fantastic Beasts aren't the same people that are directly in charge of DC.
Yeah.
They are two different sets of people.
Yeah. But anyways, back to
that, and I don't think anybody looked at the Ezra Miller thing on the same level, especially with like the comments that came out after about not that it protects what he did, but context is key, and the context of that scenario, if that's true, makes it look I don't want to say a little better, because he did push a woman to the ground, but it helps. So
I get it. I'm just saying that's been their kind of MO lately. That was kind of my point. Is like they just kind of Besides, their MO is to pretend that it doesn't happen. That was kind of my only point with that. As for what's going on with what I think the other ones from DC, I think the Flash, we're definitely getting a first look. I said this before, but if we got a trailer from the Batman after only a month of filming, I think it was like a month or two, there's going to be like 3 or 4 months of filming with the Flash, or they could
be more like 6.
Yeah, 6. It could be completely done with principal photography by the time that comes up, and it's I'm sure some of them are going to have the FX at least on a basic level done. So I guarantee we're going to get the first look at the Flash. Black Adam, we're definitely getting a trailer of some sort. Shazam, I agree. You're probably going to have like an animatic like you had for the Flash last year, or Black Adam, where it kind of just teases the story and again any new castings. I'm 100% with you there. I kind of hope this hasn't been. I kind of hope. The other thing that's kind of been, they just announced today or earlier this week that Finn went.
You're getting ahead of me again. You're getting ahead of me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I know where you're going with this.
Okay. I'm excited. DC's like my favorite. Like, I love DC movies. Comic book movies in general, I love. So just I get ahead of myself. I apologize. But yeah.
No, you're good. So actually, I can take that and bring in the next bit.
Yeah.
So a lot of the TV stuff I mostly stayed away from, just because, again, there is so much DC TV that anything that is in active development, you'll get something with. I mean, even more than the films, it seems like they really love pushing their TV. So like I see in the comments, like Harley Quinn got brought up. I'm sure if there's stuff about Harley Quinn season 3 at that point in time, they will put it out at DC FanDome, because that's TV is their bread and butter. It's the only thing that they can consistently get going. Films, it's kind of a real start and stop situation. But so when I was doing research, obviously, you have to cut the fat on a lot of projects. But DC have a number of films that are in active development that do actually have had steps taken recently. So to rattle off that list of films quickly. So we have obviously the J.J. Abrams produced Superman film, which is being written by Ta-Nehisi Coates. We have the J.J. Abrams produced Justice League Dark series that will go to HBO Max. We have the Zatanna film, which will be written by Emerald Fennell of Promising Young Woman. We have a Constantine reboot, which all we know about that is it will be connected to Justice League Dark. We have the Blue Beetle film, which will come from Angel Manuel Soto. We have the Michael B. Jordan produced Static Shock film. And then we have an announced Green Lantern reboot film. And then separately, which is where JD was going, we have a Green Lantern HBO Max series. Now, while doing research, I found 2 rumored titles. I don't know how legit either of these are, but the 2 rumored titles I found were Green Lantern Corps or Emerald Knights. Again, I don't know how legit either of those are, because it's not like Hollywood Reporter was saying it, but those did come up. Which the series has been reported to star 4 Lanterns in the lead: Alan Scott, Simon Baz, Jessica Cruz, and Guy Gardner, which as of yesterday we learned that actor Finn Wittrock was cast in the role of Guy Gardner. Wittrock is best known for his work with Ryan Murphy in a number of his shows, as well as being part of the ensemble of The Big Short. And just this year, he was in an indie film that I actually really enjoyed called The Long Weekend, which is this sci-fi romance little indie film that came out. So he is officially playing Guy Gardner, and it will be in that series. So we know there's some solidified piece of content there with that. So JD, I'll go to you first since you wanted to get there with it. Out of that long list I rattled off, what one or two projects stands out as the most exciting to you, and what do you think we'll get with them?
I am kind of pretty of the ones I am pretty excited about the Green Lantern Corps. I'll be honest with you, because the idea of the Green Lanterns I find so fascinating. Like it's basically DC's like Star Wars. It's 100% that, and the 2011 movie. While I think Ryan Reynolds is amazing, they completely dropped the ball with that film. Like they completely did the character dynamics, and that's not really what you want with a Green Lantern movie. You want a space film. Like the Oa stuff was fantastic. It was they kept on going back to Earth, and I'm like, what the f are you doing? Like, and so this definitely seems more in that vein. They also said the Green Lantern Corps is going to be connected to whatever this movie is going to be. Like they're going to be tied together potentially, or at least it's rumored that it is. And that to me is very fascinating.
Obviously, as we learned last week, and again, it's one of the weird, and not to cut you off, but it's worth mentioning, as we discussed briefly last week, DC's clearly shown a tendency to, not that they seem like they want to directly continue the Snyderverse, but they don't seem to be that far gone from wanting to continue certain things from it. We're getting The Flash. We're getting an Aquaman sequel. I didn't put it in here because it's so far in the future, I don't think they'll have anything for it, but Wonder Woman 3 is something that is in existence and in the works. There are elements of this universe that they do want to push forward with and they do want to continue. And we learned last week that an actor was cast for Jon Stewart. Now, whether that ever materializes into the film or into the show in some way, it shows that Lanterns are clearly on the mind. And now this week, obviously, we got the Finn Wittrock news. So it really is something that's on their mind. So if that's what excites you most, what do you think we'll get at this thing? Do you think we'll get like a full cast, or what are you expecting them to announce with this?
I mean, if they already did, I don't know about. I think potentially a full cast. Maybe a potential, story details about what exactly is basically the basic premise. I don't think there's going to be, unfortunately, I don't think there's going to be enough. I don't know when they're going to start filming, but they haven't really stated that yet. So I don't think there's going to be enough for footage. But I do think at least you'll get a full cast. I think you'll get a basic premise, again, similar to what they did with The Flash. And I do think is that story details. I think that's really what you're going to get. And maybe potentially, if they thought about it, how this will tie into the eventual movie. I feel like there's also a potential, again, if this is truly tied to the movie, that you're going to get an announcement potentially of what the movie is. At the very least, and again, what that ties in, how it ties in.
Potentially, yeah. Malcolm, I'll go to you next. Which of those projects that was brought up kind of entices you the most, and what do you think we'll hear about it?
I mean, I'm kind of at the point where I'm finding it like relatively hard to get excited for DC stuff now. Not so much because I've not enjoyed it, just because a lot of the times the things just don't actually end up not happening. Because I mean, I was excited for this Flash movie when it was first announced back in 2017, maybe even earlier.
Yeah, it was earlier.
But I think 2017 was when it was supposed to come out. But
that sounds right.
It was announced to come out in like 1785.
Because that's fact. Like you mentioned, this Green Lantern reboot movie. I don't know if that's happening anymore because that was announced a long time when they first announced DCU.
No, they definitely said that the people who are working on the series are working on the script for the new movie. I think that a lot of that, it is true, that announcement, they completely they botched that announcement, but they've said several times that the movie is something that they're still doing. That's where you're going to see that's where you're going to see Hal Jordan, and that's where you're going to see somebody. So yeah, it's still that.
So
you're on mute.
Look, I look when it comes to DC stuff, I'm going into this skeptical now because a lot of
it's fair.
Because
It's fair. It's 100% fair.
Because let's put it this way. Depending on if they want this movie to come out before or after the series, I don't know. They might just be maybe working on it, and then seeing how the series goes and how it gets received. But I mean, this is because I know, like the series they have said the landers they want to focus on, and I'm glad they're not focusing on Hal Jordan for the series. He's boring, and if that's what the movie's going to be, I probably really don't want to watch it. But
Malcolm.
I don't like Hal Jordan. He's the boring DC character to me. Anyway, so I mean, Finn Wittrock playing Guy Gardner is exciting, but once again, I always find it hard when it comes to judging casting because you don't know how it's going to be when it comes to put all the moving pieces in place.
Right. I mean, it like 5 years ago when it was announced, Billy Crudup was a great choice for Henry Allen, and look how that worked out because it's taken so fucking long to get there that it's like, it is what it's going to be. Matt, I'll go to you next. What about the projects? Kind of, did anything in there? Because quite honestly, for myself, I'm with Malcolm. Like, out of everything here on a creative level, because I actually only just saw the film yesterday, Emerald Fennell writing Zatanna. She's not confirmed to direct, but there's possibility of negotiations. I thought Promising Young Woman was great. Like, and especially the scenes where she's kind of playing the seductress. And again, I don't know much about Zatanna. I'm not saying she's like a hooker, but like just the way that the character is designed, and like it seems like it kind of can go down that road a little bit. She can handle that in a way where it works, but it's never going into pandering territory. It's never going into a gross territory. I think that's a really interesting choice to write the film. And I thought it was really well written. She did deserve her Oscar, as we'll get to in a minute. She deserved that. But Matt, do any of this excite you?
You know, I first want to say I'm glad you liked Promising Young Woman. I'm really glad you guys liked it because I didn't. But for me, nothing really excites me outside of Green Lantern, just because I think it's kind of a neat idea for a show to do like the multiple Green Lanterns. I think that could be pretty cool. And then Justice League Dark, you know, that show I'm curious about. I would love it, and it will not happen, but I would love it if they got Keanu Reeves to be Constantine. That's what I want. If you get Keanu Reeves, I'll look forward to Constantine. But if you don't, then whatever. And really, the only other thing I can think of that I'm excited for is to see Michael Keaton back as Batman. I don't really care about the Flash movie, but, you know, if there's anything I'm excited to see, it's Michael Keaton since he's going to be in it now.
I'm with you there on the Flash, by the way. Of all the things that, like, when it comes to the Flash, I'm 100% the skeptic when it comes to the Flash, because 100%, like, they're doing. This is the first Flash movie you're ever going to have on the big screen.
Yeah.
And you're going to use Flashpoint as your basis. And the reason you're doing that is because you want to keep what you like and you want to get rid of what you don't like. Right. And it's basically, you're going to use it for a huge reset button. And that's the only reason you're doing that story. Yet this is the first Flash movie. And it's basically, again, you're gonna shoehorn a Flashpoint movie into your first Flash movie. I think that's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
So I'm 100% with your skepticism there.
I mean, it's cool we get Michael Keaton, but that's really about all. I mean, Ezra Miller, I think, is a fine Flash, but I don't love him as the Flash. Like, I think he's pretty good, but like, I have no idea what tone they're gonna go with from here on out. I assume it's the more lighthearted Marvel type of tone rather than the, you know, darker type of tone, which I thought with Ezra Miller worked as the Flash. So hopefully they continue that.
And I think if you want to take that character and put him, and this will be the last I'll say on it before we move on, I think you could make that film in a slightly lighter tone, like it seems like they want to drift towards. It's not about it's not necessarily about the tone of it. It's about the writing. The writing has to be there. Like the problem with the Flash and Justice League for me in the theatrical cut of the film is everything they give him that they're clearly editing and cutting like it's meant to be a quip. Like I watched that movie, and just as much as everyone jokes about, half the time Ben Affleck's Batman and then he's Tony Stark. To me, the Flash is both the Flash and Spider-Man. It's a very similar character. Yeah. And so the problem with it is you're cutting half his scenes like it's clearly meant to be a punchline to a quip, but it's either not funny or it's clearly not a joke. You're just editing it like it's trying to be a joke, and that doesn't work. If you give him good dialogue, Ezra Miller's a good enough actor where he can do it, but it has to be good. That said, though, Malcolm, you want to jump one last thing before we move on?
My last thing on the Flash is like, I think from here on out, I think the DCEU as we know it is probably going to be dead. I think everything going forward is probably going to be more standalone, which is why I think they're doing Flashpoint. I don't think they're doing it as a big reset button per se. I think they're doing
certain things.
I think they're doing it as a way as like, we're just going to do it because we like the Flashpoint story and we want to just do Elseworld things and just not have each movie sort of connect to each other anymore. So I think that's maybe why they're choosing to go that way.
And they want to get rid of Ben Affleck. They want to have a conclusion for Ben Affleck's Batman too. So I feel like that's the other. Again, that's what I mean by the reset button. They're going to keep what they like. They're going to get rid of what they don't like, and then that is the reset.
Well, I mean, I've heard Ben Affleck's in the Flash movie as well, so
that's what I thought too. Maybe that's how they get rid of him. But I just wanted to see Henry Cavill versus The Rock. That's what I wanted. I really wanted that in a Black Adam movie.
I will say that's one of the
get it, but we don't know.
I'm about 50-50 on the Henry Cavill. I like Henry Cavill's portrayal of in Man of Steel. I feel like I haven't given my opinion on the Snyderverse, on public. And I will just briefly say that I do think the Snyderverse had ran its course by the Snyder cut, and where they were hinting where they were going with Henry Cavill. I did not like at all. Making it so tied to Lois, I was like, no. Let's move on. But that's kind of my brief opinion, I think.
Beautiful people.
All right. So let's go ahead and move on from DC. Obviously, we will see in October, whoever's on the panel will circle back. Obviously, we will get into everything they announce. I don't know what's dying in Matt's background.
It's my dog. It's my brother's dog. Whenever they're gone, he's supposed to stay in the room. No, he's supposed to stay in my brother's room next door. So he wants out running around and whatnot, but nobody will watch him because either people are asleep right now or they're on a podcast. So he has to sit there and be upset.
Well, let's go ahead and give him 5 minutes to get all that out as we move into recapping the it was certainly a television event. Let's talk about the Oscars. The 2021 Academy Awards, celebrating the best that 2020 had to offer in film, or at least what was left after all the big ones ran, happened last weekend. And like the year 2020 itself, the celebration happened in an awkward fashion with both amazing and saddening moments. Chloe Zhao's Nomadland won big amongst the major awards, taking home Best Picture, Best Actress for Frances McDormand, and Best Director for Chloe Zhao herself. The Father took home Best Actor for Anthony Hopkins and Best Adapted Screenplay for Florian Zeller and Christopher Hampton. Other major standouts include Soul, which won Best Animated Feature and Best Original Score, Promising Young Woman for Best Original Screenplay by Emerald Fennell, Daniel Kaluuya for Best Supporting Actor, and Yoo Jung-yoon for Best Supporting Actress. Yu Jung's speech, which showed her true, genuine appreciation in the very unprepared way that can only tell us she clearly didn't believe she was going to win, was one of the amazing highlights of a night that, for some reason, included weird but funny moments like Glenn Close twerking with Little Rel to debut while being cheered on like Daniel Kaluuya at a strip club. The man himself, Daniel Kaluuya, who during his winning speech thanked his parents for having sex to make him. And Frances McDormand howling in honor of Nomadland sound mixer Michael Wolf Snyder after winning Best Picture. And since there was a lot of confusion on the internet around this moment, I'll go ahead and clarify it here. Michael Wolf Snyder was a former sound mixer who worked on Nomadland, shooting on set with them in the desert areas. Snyder suffered from chronic depression, which was fueled even further by being stuck in his apartment in New York City for months on end during New York's strict lockdown rules. Earlier this year, Snyder unfortunately took his own life shortly after completing work on Nomadland, and thus they dedicated a win for Best Picture to him. However, in what was easily the biggest debacle since the La La Land Moonlight situation, the Oscars took a gamble chance and, working off the assumption that favorite for the award Chadwick Boseman would win, moved up Best Picture to make Best Actor the last award of the night. However, the award, and might I add, deservedly so, went to Anthony Hopkins, the only actor unable to accept the award with a speech. Hopkins would later officially accept it through a brief but classy speech posted on Instagram in which he honored Boseman as well. However, the abrupt ending and awkward feeling left Joaquin Phoenix and show MC Questlove to awkwardly close out the show as Twitter was blowing up like an atomic bomb had just got dropped. In the days since, the Academy has released an apology for the blunder. While they do stand by the actor's decision that Hopkins got the award, the feeling the feeling, according to the producers, was that Boseman was the heavy favorite. He had also won more Best Actor awards at major award shows than Hopkins had. And they decided to move in order to close on a particularly touching moment, as his family would have been there to accept had he won. However, they worked off the assumption rather than simply checking the envelope to see if he had won in an attempt to keep the preservation of the winner being announced live. Multiple people close to Boseman have responded since. His brother Derek Boseman spoke out and said that on the night, neither he nor Boseman's wife were upset that Chadwick's name wasn't called. He said that Chadwick personally never put too much stake into campaigning for the Oscars, and while it would have been nice for him to have a win, he feels that the public love and appreciation for the roles that Boseman played is more than enough and will be more than enough for Boseman and his family. He also showed appreciation for Anthony Hopkins, wishing him well and appreciating the tribute paid during his acceptance speech. This was followed by Franklin Leonard, the producer behind Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, speaking through Twitter and saying that Boseman would not have been stressed about winning. Instead, he would want the passion felt by that stress to be put towards, quote, aiming unconscionably high in both art and humanity. On top of the actual show antics itself, another major thing that happened during the award show was we got our first look at West Side Story, the upcoming film by Steven Spielberg. The musical is a remake of the 1962 original done by Robert Wise and is a musical adaptation of the story of Romeo and Juliet. This time around, Ansel Elgort and newcomer Rachel Zegler will star as Tony and Maria, two teenagers whose relationship is made complicated by their affiliations to rivaling street gangs, the Jets and the Sharks. Spielberg reunites with writer Tony Kushner for the script, who previously wrote Munich and Lincoln for him. West Side Story will be released into theaters this year on December 10th, 2021. There we go. So obviously, bit of a longer one, a lot to break down there with the Oscars. What a weird ceremony, man. Like, by far not the worst one that I think I've ever seen, but just what a weird one. Like,
I 100% think there's before the in memoriam and after an in memoriam. Like, it completely goes downhill after the in memoriam. Or during.
I don't know what you mean, man. It may have gone down, but Glenn Close went down with it, man. That was something else, man. Yeah. And the fact that wasn't scripted, like that clearly, and they've said as much after. Like, somebody must have just chucked a mic at Lil Rel and said, "Hey, walk around and interact with these people. They look dead inside," because it was just so weird. Malcolm, I don't know when you might have. What do the ceremonies air at a time that's good for you? I don't actually know what time it is for you right now. Like, do they air at a time that's good for you guys down there?
Yeah, like I watched all this live, and like I did a big Facebook post about this. I've talked about this on Gone with the Wind on Take 3. So
Yeah,
so I've gone into depth onto this ceremony already, but in short, I didn't hate like the ceremony because like a lot of the like winners were relatively sort of locked. They knew like Daniel Kaluuya was obviously going to win, so was obviously going to win. So I mean, but yeah, I mean, taking the game on Chadwick Boseman should not have happened. Like if they wanted to end on a tribute to Chadwick, then just move the in memoriam to the end.
right.
I mean, I'll get onto the in memoriam later anyway. But it's just one of those ones that's weird. But the weirdest thing I've actually found about this is the Chinese government's reaction, because they completely just snubbed Closell completely, because they put out a big mandate that the Oscars are not going to be the Oscars weren't televised. They censored any mention of the Oscars in China at all. So
Really?
it's something like apparently Closell made a comment early 2013 or something like that, saying something about how the country of China is full of lies and how America's a real true home now, and the Chinese government just didn't like that and stuff like that. I just found it weird, but that one of their own people won, but they just won't acknowledge it.
That's so weird.
To China. It's not a free country there. They censor. There's a huge censor going on.
Oh, I know.
Oh yeah.
But it's
so. In terms of like, we'll kind of go around. I'll break this down into pieces. In terms of the actual show itself, did anyone have any wins that surprised them? Because offhand, I mean, Matt, I'm sure as someone who doesn't like Promising Young Woman, that one was or did you even think it would win? Your mic's turned down.
That wasn't a surprise for me because that was more of a disappointment. Was that adapted or was it just original? Okay, so Borat could not have won that. I was going to say if Borat was nominated, Borat deserved it more, but that's just me. No, I wasn't surprised though, original wise, but still, it is what it is. I would say one of the bigger surprises for wins was what's her face, Frances McDormand for Nomadland. That's the one that kind of really sticks out to me, besides the obvious that is really surprising. I was expecting Carey Mulligan to win because, granted, didn't like the movie, but I like Carey Mulligan in the movie.
Oh, she's great.
Like she's like the one, or she's one of the few things I liked in the movie. But I thought she was gonna win, or maybe Kirby. I thought she might have won for Pieces of a Woman. Because I thought Frances McDormand was good, like she was really good. But I mean, that's Frances McDormand, but she's not like phenomenal in the movie. Like she doesn't give a performance where I look at it and go, "Oh, that's Best Actress right there." So that's like the one I could think of.
But just to bounce off that, Best Actress was probably one of the ones that was really hard to lock out who was going to win, because if you look at all the precursors, like Frances McDormand won BAFTA, Viola Davis won SAG, Carey Mulligan I think got the Golden Globe for whatever side she was in. And Andrew Day got the other side. Vanessa Kirby was the only one which I was looking at, like she's not going to win regardless because like she hasn't won anywhere else, and like I think people had forgotten about Pieces of the Woman by that point. So I was like, it's going to be one of those people who had already won something and was keeping themselves fresh in the voters' minds.
Yeah.
So Frances McDormand, I wasn't surprised by. I actually almost went with her in my prediction pick, but then like I just I went against my gut. I went with my head as opposed to my heart, and I went Viola because I felt like the Academy wanted to go for those. When the SAG had that 4 people of color winning for the first time, I thought the Oscars were gonna want to engineer something similar to that because politics does play a lot into the Oscars, and don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. It does. So I just thought they were going to make that happen, regardless of whether or not they had seen the movies. But the reason I wasn't surprised by Frances was every year I bet against the BAFTAs, I lose. I lose my predictions when it comes to those. When it comes to the acting, like a lot of the years where specifically Best Actor and Best Actress, the acting category specifically, the years that the BAFTA differs from like the SAG, which is the other indicator of where the acting categories are going to go.
Yes.
It normally, a lot of the times, it goes BAFTA. Like Meryl Streep winning for The Iron Lady that year, couple in 2012. BAFTA, she won the BAFTA. Anthony Hopkins won the BAFTA.
He did
the Oscar for Best Actor. It happens a lot. A lot of the times when the BAFTA goes different, it typically goes to the BAFTA. So I wasn't surprised by it.
Yeah, I think, and I mean, like I said, the show did have legitimately great moments. I thought some of the speeches were really great. Like I said, like I made the joke, like, okay, yeah, one of the weirdest things that's ever been said at the Oscars is Daniel Kaluuya thanking his parents for fucking so that he was born. But that was a genuine speech from the heart. Like, I turned to my brother and I was like, you know, as somebody who has relatives who are British and, you know, they kind of speak it because he's very casual the way that he speaks. You kind of speak the way like him. I was like, never heard an actor win an award and say, bruv, that many times in a speech, have you? Because he's just speaking casually from the heart. It's not like this written prepped thing. He was just speaking from the mind. And his Yu Jung's award for Minari, which only surprised me because Minari is one of the ones I didn't get to, so I just had no basis to rate her performance on. So I couldn't, you know, deter it, but good for her for winning, because when I looked it up and I realized this was her first English film, like, damn, that's an incredible achievement for her career, having worked on so many foreign films to make her first American film and win. That's great for her. And I'm should be seeing it this week at some point because it's going to be at a theater near me again. So I'm going to try and see it. You all right, Malcolm? You like?
Oh yeah, I'm fine.
You like were zoned out for a second. I thought you were like freaked out about something going on.
No, I was. I'll explain off here.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah,
that'd be bad.
Best Actress. I guess part of the reason I guess I couldn't say I was shocked that Frances McDormand won. It's just another one of those things. Like, I thought Nomadland was really good. And I understand why Chloe Zhao won for directing, and I guess to an extent I can even understand why it won Best Picture. But I thought a couple of those actors' performances were far more engaging than McDormand. Plus, she just won a few years ago for 3 Billboards, which, to be fair, if it's a competition purely, and as they say it's purely based on talent, then just because she just won a few years ago shouldn't play anything into it. But again, as JD said, there's much more to this than just who's truly the best. There is so much more to this, which is why let's get to the thing we've all been jumping around, the Chadwick incident, right? Mm-hmm. Here's my thing. In a year where you're already breaking so many traditions, right? The best song performances have been a thing for years with the Oscars. Yeah. They did them all pre-show. You're at a completely different setting and location than what the Oscars has been held in for the last number of years. You have no host, which is kind of almost becoming the tradition now, but like you have no proper host. You don't have a proper orchestra. You have Questlove on a DJ table. You know, you're already breaking so many traditions to make this show work. Just open the fucking envelope.
Yeah.
Make sure you're not gambling on something that's not a surefire win. Because the truth of the matter is, and here's the thing, and I said this, I put up a post on my Instagram and I shared it to the page on Facebook as well. I don't think Anthony Hopkins was completely deserving of that award. Like, in my opinion, if it wasn't going to Chadwick, who I do believe had the better performance, ever so slightly, if it wasn't going to Chadwick, then it, bar none, should have been Anthony Hopkins. It's a 1A, 1B situation. I thought Chadwick passing, honestly, would give him the edge because the Oscars do tend to kind of go that direction, but it didn't in this case. And now Anthony Hopkins is the oldest actor to ever win an Oscar, which is an honor he does incredibly deserve for this film. But again, it's just, if Chadwick had won and that moment played out exactly the way you wanted it to, it would have been a beautiful moment and no one would have been questioning it at all. You know, the topic of the end of the show would have been, why did Frances McDormand look so pissed off when she was accepting her Best Actress award? She was happy 5 minutes ago, right? Like, that would have probably been the talk of the show, because that was weird how she got up on stage, kind of stuttered through a speech, and then walked off shooing cameras out of her face. But nobody's talking about that because they blundered the ending so bad, right? But again, it's one of those things where they can go, well, that was out of our control. But it's in your control. Just open the envelope. Make sure. Because if somebody had thought to read it and go, oh, the only actor of the 5 who cannot physically accept his award either here or through any kind of digital means, at least what we were willing to set up, because apparently he wanted to try and do it through a Zoom through his computer and they wouldn't allow that, so he went to bed. Hopefully Malcolm will be able to come back on in a second. So there he is. And so just check. Like, that's the moral of the story. Just check. Like, if somebody had opened that envelope, they could have stopped it and went, don't move it, keep it the same. Because honestly, that tribute that they did to Michael Snyder, if that was your ending moment of the show, that's another heartwarming moment to end on. Malcolm, you were speaking in a sec. Go ahead, and then I'll go to you, JD, afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, I mean, I don't think that they should have, like, I don't think getting someone to open the envelope just to check if Chadwick had won would have been a good idea, purely because it would take away from the fact that that the people who are hosting it, who are presenting the award, don't actually know the thing. So I think that would have, to keep it all on board, then I think they do need to keep the winners secret for the host, because all it takes is one person opening.
True.
In that, but yeah.
I guess in my envisioning of it, I'm thinking like the only person who gets put them in a room by themselves, and the only person who gets to see it is your top producer, like the person who's losing their job if this gets fucked up. They're the ones who read it so that they get to go, yes, we should make the change, or no, we shouldn't. Because that's really where it lies, is you change the ordering of the awards to attempt to have a moment and had no real sense of security outside of a really good feeling. And that was dumb. It was fucking dumb. Go ahead, Jake.
Are you done, Malcolm? I don't want to cut you off.
Well, the last thing I will say is the only reason it did end sort of anticlimactically is Anthony Hopkins' reps did plead with the Academy to let him do a Zoom because he couldn't get to one of the hubs. There was also the rumor that Olivia Colman was supposed to go up, but that's actually been debunked since, and they've actually said that that wasn't in the plans.
which would have been better than anything.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it would have been better if they had it, but that was never in the contention. The Anthony's reps were pleading to let him zoom in, but I understand why they didn't want people to sort of be on Zoom, like a separate Zoom, and that.
Right.
I think it's just because like you allow exception to one person, then you have backlash from other people who were there. It's like, well, you told me I couldn't zoom in, but so I think there's a bit of both worlds. But yeah,
Didn't those screenwriters or whatever, or some award one? Didn't they do it over Zoom or something?
But they were at an Oscar hub, so the Oscar gave them a location and said, "Hey, head here, and you can give your speech through us." Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but Anthony
that's what all those
is definitely older and didn't want to risk going to London in order to accept.
Yeah, that's what all those actors were. I don't know how they did it, but they found a beautiful water shot for them all to stand behind. Yeah. That's what that was. The Oscars said, "Hey, meet us here, and we'll put you on screen."
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if someone would just green screen.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah.
They can afford it.
Hey, Sasha, stand in front of a screen for 5 seconds. We can just get you in front of a. All right, cool.
Well, I mean, it could just be, what I meant by that is in the hub, it could be the green screen. They put the the shot of like Sydney Harbour, because it reminds me of like when they do like something in the news and you're going live to a reporter in a studio, somewhere else. So, and they do have the screen of a shot of whatever city they're in, just to show off some of that scenery. So whether or not it's green screen or it was a water shot, like you said, we'll never know. But yeah.
Go ahead, JD.
But I'm 100% of the standpoint of they just shouldn't have done it. I don't care. Even if Chadwick Boseman was the winner, I still think Best Picture should have been last. I think Best Picture should have been last. That means you don't even have to do the check. You don't have to ruin the integrity. You don't have a potential for a leak, which was the other reason why they don't like to do the check, because if one person knows, again, even if it's unintentional, somebody could be nearby and see it, and then it could get leaked out, and you don't want your last award to be leaked out. So I just don't think they should have done it that way. And again, from all indications, like Chadwick Boseman didn't ultimately care whether if he was alive and he was around, he wouldn't have cared whether he won or not. If you really, for all indications, if you just wanted to really tribute the man. And again, there were some things that came out later about them, like merching, like the bag was in his, like had a picture of his face on it. So they were really just trying to exploit him. If you really wanted to tribute the man, just do what like the Emmys have done in the past, is like at the end of the ceremony, before you end, have his widow come out for like 2 minutes to end the ceremony and just explain like what the craft meant to him. And that could have been a powerful moment you could have ended the Oscars on.
Yeah.
And it would have been a far better tribute than even, trying to ham-fist this moment that, as I said, didn't end up happening. And I am somebody who thinks... Sorry.
Well, I was gonna say, to be fair, I actually think that's what I think they were going for, because his brother and his wife...
No, but again, I'm saying instead of the award, just don't manufacture it with the award. I'm just saying make you separate. Again, you found time for the butt. Like, you could have found 2 minutes somewhere for, again, at the end of the ceremony, to just have somebody speak on the bet. Again, if that's something you really, or at the end of in memoriam, like just have like like the Emmys have done in the past. If there are really people that you want to highlight, they had people like for 2 minutes just speak about the guy and what he meant about how he felt about the craft. I feel like that would have been a far better tribute than what they actually did, trying to force this moment at the end. And I am actually somebody, speaking of, who actually did think that Anthony, in a vacuum, I do think Anthony Hopkins was the better performance, and it was close. I wouldn't have been upset if Chadwick Boseman won. And again, I get this is the only time that he could, win, and Anthony Hopkins already has won. So again, I get kind of I predicted that Chadwick Boseman was going to win. I get why people are upset that he didn't get it. Again, in a vacuum, I was somebody who felt Anthony Hopkins was the better performance. But again, it's just a whole thing. It's that I just don't. It should end on Best Picture, and I guess going back to the whole ceremony, there's a lot of I didn't outright hate the ceremony. I think they actually did a lot really well. I feel like I've said for many years that the Oscars needs to stop being this mainstream thing and just embrace being a niche award show. Like the Tonys, for instance, they do the same type of show every year. It has the same structure. They don't try to reinvent the wheel, and they get whatever ratings they get. I feel like that's what they should do.
Okay.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Sorry, I went on for a bit.
Last thing on it, Matt, before we move on, go ahead.
Okay. So I didn't get to say my thoughts on the show itself. So I'll just make it real quick. I do agree there were some good moments, but this was probably the worst Oscars I've seen because it didn't feel like the Oscars. Like you guys mentioned, there was things taken away from it. And while there were great moments, I thought the way it was shot was really it didn't work for me. Like it almost felt like they were trying to make it look like a movie in the beginning with some of the color correction. Didn't like that at all. Now, with the Chadwick Boseman situation, I was fully expecting him to win. I was shocked. I will say, because I know Diaz, he saying how Chadwick should win, if not maybe Riz Ahmed. And this is going by personal experience. I mean, look, Chadwick Boseman was great. It's Anthony Hopkins Award, just because I've lived around family members that went through it, and he nailed every single thing perfectly. So even though I knew, or I thought I knew, it was going to be Chadwick Boseman, I was wanting it to be Anthony Hopkins because, like, I don't know who else would have nailed it as perfect as he did. And to me, if it wasn't Anthony Hopkins...
And it should be... Well, this was the thing I found out after the win happened, which I guess kind of makes the win even better. The director, who is French, was so invested in getting Anthony Hopkins. The film actually began as a French language film, but if he had been, once he found out that he could get interest in Hopkins and get to Hopkins, it would only became an English language film when Hopkins agreed to it. Other than that, it would have been a foreign film.
Okay, I didn't know that at all. But
so it all laid on Anthony Hopkins.
Right. But yeah, he was the winner, and I honestly think there's a pretty big gap between first and second. If it wasn't Anthony Hopkins, I would have honestly put Riz Ahmed ahead. I thought he was spectacular in Sound of Metal. Chadwick, to me, even though I thought it was great, especially towards the end of the movie, he's like my third or fourth on the list. It was Stephen Wen. I think he's close to Chadwick. I know I'm like more in the minority when it comes to that, but still,
we can all agree Oldman was fifth.
Yeah, and then Gary Oldman's fifth. He's great in the movie. He's fifth.
I stand by this that the best person wasn't even nominated. Delroy Window from The Five Bloods 100% should have been nominated. It's an outrage that he wasn't, and it's 100% because they were going to try to get. I stand by this. I think they should have he would have 100% not only have been nominated, but potentially would have won had he been supporting. If they tried to get him supporting, but because they wanted Chadwick Boseman as to get them 2 Oscars this year. That's why they won him Best Acting.
Mhm.
I get it's arguable, but if Daniel Kaluuya is a Best Supporting Actor, then Delroy Lindo is a Best Supporting Actor.
Right.
Well, and again, this is a whole other debate. I don't want to go down.
It's another debate.
We've already
saying
spent.
In general, I think he should have been nominated. Like, take out Gary Oldman, put in Delroy Lindo.
Yeah,
He nominated, yes, win absolutely not over Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins,
not over Anthony
No.
Hopkins, but again, it's a whole other thing.
Right. But and then I also agree with JD in the sense that it should be best film last.
Yeah, it should.
No matter what. No matter what they're into. And the In Memoriam too. Because we didn't touch on the In Memoriam. You know, we kind of briefly said where it should have been. That was like rushed. Like it felt like it was just rushed more than it ever was, because it would go like, here's a picture of one guy, here's another guy, here's another guy.
Yet they still had 10 minutes to do that whole play that tune bit. You could 100% done the In Memoriam in a normal speed, because and taken out one of those play that tune segments.
True.
Honestly, I think it more came down to an issue from a producer's standpoint. I think they thought because that was the other thing, was none of the speeches were ridiculously long this year. We're used to some actors giving these really, really long speeches. I think they were trying to manage it in such a way where they wanted it to be about the power of the speeches at the end, because even like Best Picture, right? With Best Picture, normally every producer gets to speak. The only people who spoke were Chloe Zhao, I believe, and Frances McDormand. Like none of the other people spoke. And so it's this, I mean, shit, the year that Moonlight won, all of La La Land's producers got to speak, and then all of Moonlight's producers spoke.
Yeah.
So like it was a weird, so I think it was a producer error. Like I think they thought they would need more time for speeches. And also maybe it's just me, I didn't read into it that they sped it up. They picked a faster tempo song for the In Memoriam segment this year, so I thought they were just going to the beat of the song. They were just playing it quicker because it was a quicker tempo.
But also the footage was going quicker too. That was the other thing.
Well, that's what I mean, though. Malcolm, you clearly want to speak. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, on the note,
and after this, we'll move on. But go ahead.
Yeah, but because they moved these performances and they didn't have an opening monologue, I think they allowed the speeches to go along, because they weren't actually playing off the speeches like they would normally do.
Right.
And I think because some of the back end speeches were short, I think that was because the producer said, look, we are running the risk of going over time, so we're going to need you to do be quick for your speeches now. So that might have been a producer thing midway through the show, because, like, if you look at it, all the earlier speeches were read on a relatively bit. Like if Daniel Kaluuya's speech was played off, we probably would have never got the him talking about his parents having sex.
That was great.
We probably.
That was
and I love the way he said it. Like he said it like it was the brightest thing he'd ever said. And to my parents for having sex and making me, like it was this. He just figured out
the moment, and then they pan to like his mom and his sister.
Mom was embarrassed as hell.
Great. Like again, you wouldn't have gone that again. If they played him off, you wouldn't have gone that. And again, you could see it like in his like tone, just like, hey, I'm not being played off. I'm gonna improv here, see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, it's but going back to the In Memoriam, what I did notice is that a lot of the behind the scenes people was changing too faster than the likes of Bozeman and Connery and the bigger name people. So some people did have more of a presence on that video than some of the behind the scenes, but it's one of those ones. They could have done it like they normally do, have pre-record like someone recording the singing if the Sarah McLachlan song they always usually do, and do it the way they would normally do it. but have that pre-record. I get that in the Union Station they only had limited space of, but I just felt like the M1 definitely was rushed, and I mean, and the other thing is they didn't have like what they normally do in the M1. They would have clips and stuff in there, like of the actors doing iconic role.
Sorry, finish up. Well, and I was gonna say we could talk about this all night, so I'm gonna go ahead and move the show along once Malcolm finishes.
What about West Side?
Well,
we didn't even talk about West Side.
That's
okay.
So Malcolm, finish your point up if you.
But I think that this is one of those ones that because I enjoy watching the Oscars. But to me, it's one of those ones that, and that whole music trivia segment, I think, was really poorly placed. I think they should have put it around the middle, if anything, if they were going to do it. And what I think, and this, like, to me, this year's Oscars showed they should really have a host or someone to do an opening monologue before the first award, because when you had Regina King sort of come out and just go straight into the thing, it's like that's kind of the first indicator, like, this is definitely not But going back to actually what Matt said earlier about the Oscars to feel more cinematic, that's exactly what Steven Soderbergh wanted. He wanted the Oscars to feel like more of a cinematic event. That was actually what he said leading up to the Oscars.
Did Soderbergh produce the Oscars?
Yeah, he did.
Soderbergh produced the Oscars.
He wasn't the producer. Okay. He directed.
I mean,
that explains some of it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But it's one of those ones. Had they put the actual like best original song back in there, I think it would have broken up the monotony of the Oscars a little bit better.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can hear might me go full depth into these thoughts over on Gone with the Wind on take 3. But yeah.
And the truth is, we could probably do a whole 2-hour show talking about this. I was Gone with the Wind is around the hour mark, correct? Or is it a little longer this one?
That episode of Gone with the Wind is probably about 2 hours. So.
Okay, yeah. So we could literally do a whole show on this, because, I mean, you could get into every little aspect, but unfortunately that's not what this show is. So we're going to go ahead and keep it moving a little bit. But yeah, let's briefly get into for the next couple minutes before we move on, as I included it, because... And this is something I've always thought of I've always thought of it. And then when I saw the trailer premiere, I was like, yeah, we need to do this more often. And this wasn't the only time they did it. They did the first trailer for Questlove's documentary. I believe that's going to Hulu. And there was 1 or 2 other smaller projects that got trailers. But everyone talks about how the Super Bowl's a big thing for trailers. Why don't they plug big trailers during the Oscars? Like, if you want a reason to get people to tune in at times, the Oscars would be the way to do it, the trailers. But with that said, and I'll let everyone give just a brief opinion before we move on. I think it looks fine. Like, at the end of the day, it's a teaser. And it's honestly the same opinion I had on the first In the Heights trailer, which was like, yes, this is very well shot imagery of people dancing around and singing. It gives me no indication, right? Like, one of my biggest concerns is Rachel Zegler. She's never acted before. She was a singer who posted clips to YouTube, and Spielberg liked what he saw after, let her audition, and then pulled her in, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know how she'll perform. I can only hope, acting alongside someone like Ansel Elgort, who, I don't know, whatever the fuck's up with his personal life today, but take that aside, he's a good actor. Spielberg's a great director. Hopefully that enhances her performance. She had nothing in this trailer, so I can't really judge on that. So all we really got was it was a few minutes. It was a lot of dancing, a lot of shots, as I showed in the montage there. Lots of shots, and it looks good. It looks good from a cinematography perspective. It looks like a very beautiful film. I need something more to really judge it, right? Like, I had no hype for In the Heights off that first trailer. I think the newest trailer that they've just released, like in the last week or two, is a much better trailer, because I get a much better sense of what the film is. rather than everything else around it. So I'll go around the panel quickly. Matt, JD, then Malcolm. Give your brief thoughts on it, and then we'll go ahead and move on.
So for me, I liked it. You know, I thought it was a decent trailer. I will say because of the whole Ansel Elgort controversy stuff that came out for a while, I did call Steven Spielberg's agent and said, "Hey, let's Christopher Plummer this, and let's have me replace Ansel Elgort. I'll fly over. We'll shoot the scenes. We'll do like a Tig, Notaro type of thing." Never got a call back from Spielberg.
No.
So I'm assuming they decided to stick with it, but I'm also going to assume I would have been the guy that would have replaced Elgort. So there is that. But yeah, I thought it was fine. You know, there wasn't too much to go off of it, but it's Spielberg. He loves the original, so I expect this to be really good.
Yeah, JD, brief thoughts on the trailer.
Okay, I'll be honest. I was kind of underwhelmed with the trailer. I'll be honest. I was very underwhelmed. I actually did like the Into the Heights show because it did look. It was. I get what you're saying that it didn't give you much about the story, but I did like the kind of cinematic flair that it was showing. So it did hype me up. The first Into the Heights show. This one just looks like. We're playing on the nostalgia. Oh, remember the scenes you like? Oh, they're in here. Oh, but I'm not seeing what's really different from, the 1960s version. As a musical fan, I'm like, I as somebody who really likes the 1960s version, I didn't really see the need to remake this film. So I kind of need to be convinced why this was gonna be remade. And I was, as somebody, they announced this project, and initially he was also going to direct the Leonard Bernstein biopic. I was far more excited about the Leonard Bernstein biopic than I was about him directing West Side Story. And then they're like, oh, then Bradley Cooper announced his project, and then he became a producer on that one instead and combined the two projects. And I was very disappointed, and he just went to go do West Side Story. So again, in general, it's somebody that the combination of reasons why I'm just kind of underwhelmed.
And then Malcolm, thoughts on the trailer before we move on.
Yeah, I actually didn't watch the trailer. Like, it was like when I watched it live, like the trailers like that may have dropped during the ads didn't actually come up here, so I haven't got around to actually watching the trailer. But I've always been hyped for Spielberg doing a musical. So yeah, I'll probably check out the trailer at some stage.
Well, there we go. All right, guys, let's go ahead and move into the next segment of the show. We talk about all the latest in the movies world. We've discussed DC. We've discussed the Oscars. Let's get to a little bit of that movie news that came out this week. This week, following Godzilla vs. Kong's incredible box office performance, all things considered at least, the box office continues to grow as we had not one, but two major releases that not only grossed well for their opening weekend, but actually competed with each other. Warner's Mortal Kombat opened last weekend to a solid $22.5 million for its domestic weekend. While normally this would be seen as a downturn, given Godzilla vs. Kong opened 3 weeks prior to $32.2 million, the reason it's considered a success is because the number 2 film at the box office, the anime release Demon Slayer, opened to $19.5 million on its domestic opening, after having already grossed the equivalent of $400 million in Japan, making it overall one of the biggest releases of the pandemic. That, added with the fact that this week Raya and the Last Dragon, which opened with a disappointing $8.5 million when it was released in early March, has now domestically quintupled that opening number, and officially with its worldwide box office has made its production budget back. And that's not counting any sales they made through Disney Plus Premier Access. All of this means that we are seeing further and further signs that we are slowly but surely getting back to a recovered and more normal looking box office. This week, Deadline reported that Young Rock co-star Uli Latukefu has joined the cast of the currently filming Black Adam, a film which stars and is produced by the man he plays himself, Dwayne the not as young Rock Johnson. Alongside it was a rumor that he may be playing Black Adam in flashbacks, which would make sense considering he plays him on TV. That character in the comics is known as Teth Adam, although nothing has been confirmed as of yet. Director Adam Wingard was, you know what? I just thought about it. This technically includes a spoiler for Godzilla vs. Kong. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, mute the audio, and when you see the picture of Charles Dance disappear, that's when you know the spoilers are done. Okay? Let's go. Director Adam Wingard was asked during an interview as to why Charles Dance, who portrayed Alan Jonah in Godzilla King of the Monsters, wasn't in Godzilla vs. Kong. After joking that Godzilla had stepped on him between films, he revealed that there actually was a scene which made it into the novelization towards the start of the film in which Dance would have briefly appeared in his role as Jonah, where we see him selling the hidden head of King Ghidorah to Walter Simmons, head of Apex. However, the scene was cut early on as it was believed that even though we never actually saw the head, people might assume the twist too early. That twist being that King Ghidorah is what partially fuels Mechagodzilla, as we know that Jonah has a head of Ghidorah from the post-credits scene of King of the Monsters. However, they cut the scene as they have cut the scene but never touched Jonah's character. Wingard said that Charles Dance's Alan Jonah is a character that could be on the table should another filmmaker want to use him. Following this interview, THR reported that Wingard is apparently in talks to return to the Monsterverse for another go after the success of Godzilla vs. Kong. However, it may not be for a little bit. As for the project, it is believed that he is in talks to helm the sequel to Kong Skull Island, tentatively titled Son of Kong, after the Skull Island's director Jordan Vogt Roberts decided to pass on the film. Wingard is currently working on a sequel to the 90s hit Face Off, and following that, he'll begin work on Thundercats, which he's already writing with Simon Bassett. It's believed that Son of Kong would come after Thundercats. However, there is another major snag in this, which is the involvement of Godzilla. It was previously reported, that Legendary's deal with Toho expired in 2020, meaning that in order to produce more films, they'll need to have to secure a deal with them again. While this doesn't mean that Godzilla would be in the Kong sequel, nor does it mean they can't make a film with Kong, Toho have no ownership of Kong, hence they can do whatever they want with him. Apparently, Warner is not interested in continuing the franchise if they don't have use of both Kong and Godzilla. And that was part of the reason as to why King of the Monsters was ended in such a way where if you wanted to end the franchise, that's not the worst ending you could have. And finally, we learned this week that the long-in-the-works sequel to The Meg 2 The Trench, is finally getting off the ground. Jason Statham confirmed this week that Warner had booked filming in officially for January 2022. The film will see the first movie's director, John Turteltaub, be replaced by British indie director Ben Wheatley, who left the director's chair on the upcoming Tomb Raider sequel to make this movie. Wheatley is best known for his direction on indie films like Kill List, High Rise, and Free Fire. The movie currently has no release date. That was what that word was. So Matt, I'll go to you first on this one. Out of that series of stories there, what kind of stood out to you the most?
So I had to step away for a second, but I'm back. So I heard the Kong, Game of Thrones actor, why he wasn't in the movie. Son of Kong is the rumored movie. And then, what was the other, I assume, 2 stories?
Well, the Meg one at the end, and then there was Mortal Kombat's box office, as well as Demon Slayer's box office success, and then the young Rock actor casted in Black Adam.
Okay. So, don't really have a whole lot with the Mortal Kombat one. Did pretty well for that movie and for it being on HBO Max, I thought. And, we're just getting out of the whole pandemic stuff. So thought it did pretty well. And, I thought it was fine. It wasn't anything spectacular, but, I'd be curious to see a sequel. So there's that. Have no idea what Demon Slayer is.
It's a anime film.
Okay. So yeah, I don't have any comment on that one. So there's that. Yep. Mortal Kombat. And then with, I guess I'll get more into, the next MonsterVerse movie, Son of Kong. I wish they would work something out with Toho, like soon, because I have no desire to see a Son of Kong movie at all. I do not care. Did you see what the rumored, or not the rumored, Adam Wingard actually came out and said, and I won't say it exactly, but did you guys see what he said the original ending was for the movie?
No, I did not see that actually.
No.
Okay. I'll say real quick.
Was it very recent?
It was pretty recent. It was a few days ago at least. But
it might have been after I'd completed all the work on the episode.
But spoilers for say 30 seconds. I'll clap my hands, and if you have not seen the movie and you want to continue watching the show, you can return after has happened. So that is your spoiler warning. So, obviously, as we know with the movie, they kind of go off, do whatever. Kong does his thing, and then Godzilla does his thing. Godzilla wins, which, we all knew was going to happen. But how it was originally going to end, and it's kind of out there, but I like it because these movies are out there anyway. They hint at the next movie being a alien invasion movie. So basically, you have aliens invading, and all of them have to fight like aliens.
That
would have been.
What was the original Toho one? There's like a Destroy All Monsters movie or something.
It might
like
be
that
one.
That's the origin of Mega Godzilla. The original origin of Mega Godzilla is he's an alien creation that helps. That he's a creation that aliens that come to Earth that want to help the humans defeat Godzilla, but then it turns out they have their own motives. So then they have to team up with Godzilla, and that's why you get Godzilla versus Mega Godzilla. I used to be a Toho freak as a child. Anyways,
so I'm gonna cut beer off for 1 second as I bring in, joining us late in the show, but he is here, ladies and gentlemen, one of our regular panelists, Mr. Nicky Sullivan, when he decides to turn his camera on, but he is here with us. Matt,
I thought it was muted. I thought it was muted when I burped, but anyway, no. To me, I think having a alien invasion movie for the next movie would have been more interesting for me than a Son of Kong movie.
Right.
Because it would have been something a little different and fun, and it would have involved Godzilla, which really, between that and Kong, I think Godzilla's the one that people want to see the most, especially like in a worldwide market. I don't think many people really have an interest in like a Son of Kong movie outside of like the hardcore Kong fans.
Yeah.
So there's a spoiler alert real quick.
Yeah, make sure we don't leave them. So from what I heard about when I was doing the research for this, because again, a lot of that story is very much rumor. It seems like the plan from here on out, and again, that actually lines up that there was another ending they traded it out for, because that was one of the things that when I saw the film and I heard, their deal actually expired in 2020, I went, okay, that kind of makes sense. They, Godzilla gives them the for respect, and Kong goes to Middle Earth, whatever it's called, and they live out their happy days. And Nicky, you are muted if you're trying to speak. I cannot hear you. You'll get there, buddy. You'll get there. We got like 20 minutes.
He's probably saying something about Star Trek Discovery.
He's pointing like you're correct. He's gonna. There's an actor in the movie that's in Star Trek Discovery. I bet you, is what it is. Love you, Nicky. Hopefully you get that shit figured out. I don't know what is happening on your end. No, so it seems like if they do move forward, it will be with this Son of Kong project. But from everything I could find, at least you'll get what you want eventually if they do move forward. Because from the all intents I'm finding, if they can't secure Godzilla again, then they're done. That's simply it. So they don't plan on making a Kong trilogy with no peer into getting Godzilla back. It's if we can get Godzilla, then we'll make Son of Kong, and then maybe we move on to the alien invasion film. Maybe they work that back in. But it seems like if there's no Godzilla, no dice. Which explains why they ended it in such a way where it's like, okay, yeah, these two dudes fought it out. They have respect for each other. They go off onto their separate lives, and that's the universe, you know. No one cares what happens to Alexander Skarsgård's character.
I care. Hello.
There we go.
There he is.
God, you're talking about the third most famous Skarsgård, man. You don't care about him?
I would venture to say Alexander is more famous than Bill.
I said third most famous, not second most famous. You got Stellan, you got Pennywise.
That's Bill
and then you
Skarsgård.
have the Kong guy.
I would say Alexander is probably more famous than Bill.
I'd say Alex is more famous than Bill.
Yeah.
Considering I just said that you didn't know who he was.
Anyway,
Nikki,
I
how you
like
doing,
Mortal
man?
Kombat. I watched that again today. That was fun.
Oh
yeah, I thought it was fun. Like it's one of the better video game adaptations out there. It's like it's
Anyone who
nothing.
was expecting more from that was expecting too much.
True.
I heard somebody say when I walked out of the theater when I saw it, I heard somebody say like I think the exact thing they said was, if that was the movie that we had got in the 90s, then we'd have like 10 of these movies.
Oh yeah,
and I
absolutely.
went, if that was the movie you got in the 90s, you probably still would have ended up.
And you're lucky enough that you got to see it in the theater. I had to watch it at home with my dad.
I did see it in the theater, and I will say, for the I normally don't get squeamish during action films, but for the second time this year, a movie made me get squeamish. The first was during Nobody, and if anyone has anybody here seen Nobody?
Yes, I love Nobody.
Well, without going into the spoilers of what the context of the scene is, he gives basically a makeshift tracheotomy to somebody.
Yes.
And that was fucking uncomfortable to watch.
Here's the thing. I love makeshift tracheotomies. Anytime somebody gives a tracheotomy with a pen, I'm like all for it. Like that's a great way to clear the airway.
Yeah, well, after you kick the guy's ass. But and it wasn't sanitary. I will say that.
If you ever need to do an emergency tracheotomy in public, just use a pen.
And then the other one was in Mortal Kombat, which surprisingly not what's her fucking face with the wings, which as somebody who doesn't know, like
that scene. I love that scene.
That wasn't the one that made me squeamish. It was when they froze Jax's arms off. I don't know what that was, but that was uncomfortable to watch.
That's in the trailer.
I know that, but for some reason, it's bloodier in the film, it seems like. I don't know. That one got me for some reason.
I was watching this with my dad today, and I know I've played Mortal Kombat with him like 1,000 times, but for some reason, he didn't know like the characters, and he didn't know that Jax got robot arms, so he's like, oh, look, arms. He's got guns. Like, yeah, he's going to get them cut off. Like, he just didn't know.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was common knowledge to people or not. But I love
Mortal Kombat. He had robot arms?
I liked Mortal Kombat a lot. I do think that it to me it felt like I'm intrigued by a sequel. I hope they get to a tournament this time because it seems to be. It seems to me like okay. I watched the Legacy series before that. I was kind of into like the Legacy web series.
Yeah.
Before that, I was kind of into like. The extreme take that he was at Kevin Tashinari.
Tantron, I believe is his name.
With his
James Wan was a producer on this film.
Yeah, but it seems to be like
original...
again like the past few years. It seems like they want to avoid the tournament at all costs. Like for some reason, they just don't want to.
Well, in my opinion,
it's not very like cinematic for people that don't play video games. The tournament seems very like. Oh yeah, the tournament seems like they're trying too hard to like adapt the video games. I love the Mortal Kombat games.
Well, it said
with the tournament, it's not like, very
as a.
But I don't know who you are, but I like you. You know Mortal Kombat. Let's fight Mortal Kombat right now.
For me, at least, the way that I look at it, like as a third film to make a piece of it a tournament, I understand it, but like. I'm going to say it because I know a lot of people love it. I think the first film's fucking terrible. It's
It's
fucking
awful.
horrendous.
That's the whole point. It's
This
terrible, but
is
it's
the best Mortal
fantastic to
Kombat movie
watch.
they've ever made.
But it's there's no story to it. Like just having a tournament, there is really no story outside of exposition.
It's just the tournament. I hear what you're saying. And this movie at least makes like the story is so surface level. Like everything is so surface level. You get a little bit with like the fireball guy. I don't remember his name. Looney Lin's character.
Liu Kang.
Liu Kang, yeah. You get a little bit of story with him, but other than that, you don't get much story. People are upset like, oh, this is an all new original character. But I don't even get upset with that part because I think that's
I thought he was fine.
when you're making a movie.
I thought they were
liked
all
him.
fine. Again, it just to me, it seems like this thing seems to be like a whole setup. It's like a setup movie to the other two movies. Like it's a setup movie to the
I
sequels.
want a proper sequel to this.
Damn it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I come into this as someone like when I saw it, I've played some of the games, but I'm not hugely into Mortal Kombat. I don't know what the depths of its lore.
That's how I was.
Most of those most of those villain characters I did not recognize. Apparently, I don't know dude's name really offhand. I can't remember any of their names, but dude who was voiced by the guy who played oh my god, what the fuck was his name? Charles Manson in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, no. He was Bruce Lee. Once upon a time, I was watching with my dad today, and he said that's the guy from that's the guy that was Bruce Lee in that Quentin Tarantino movie.
No, he's not in this.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
he was not. I can tell you. No, he's not. No, I'm saying Charles Manson, the guy that played Charles Manson in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, voiced one of the characters in this. Dude that was in like the Predator looking suit. Like that character bored me to tears. Can I just say that's one of the few story beats. Yeah. That was one of the few story beats that I didn't like about this film, because I actually thought what they were doing with Kano, who again is traditionally a bad guy, was rather interesting. And I get that it's probably
to me, Kano is the best part of the movie. Kano
I get that it was in
bitch. Like he's the worst person ever.
Like again, he's 100, but he's the best part of the movie. He's the most interesting. The comic relief character is the most interesting character in the whole movie
because he's so like the way that he swears.
Well,
is amazing.
To me,
like he just swears, he just pig's ass at one time in this movie, and I'm like, never heard somebody say that.
They were 100% going with knockoff Chateau Copley, but I was all here for it. Like that's 100% what they were going for with that character. But I was like, yeah, that fits. That definitely fits. Knockoff Chateau Copley definitely fits.
Right. I have an update for the guy that plays Bruce Lee in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He was not in Mortal Kombat, but he was in the movie Boogie.
Okay, that's
his name is Mike Mo.
I was watching this today. Yeah. He was saying, he's like, that's the guy from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm like, no, it's not.
Malcolm wants to go. Malcolm, go ahead.
The one you're thinking of, Aaron, is Damon Herman, who's
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Like
Max Young is the one that played in Mortal Kombat.
Not that his performance was bad by any means, just half those villain characters, and I don't know if they're big or small characters in the game, but like chick with the wings who Shang Tsung clearly wanted to get it on with, like the fuck was the point of that character?
She was there to die.
What was up with Dude with the Hammer? What was up with the Predator motherfucker? Like all of these characters had no point of being there except we need people for them to fight at the end, and I just didn't care.
I think there's a 2-hour and 10-minute movie version of the movie. They just cut it down because they know what people like me want, and they want this random hat spinning like at 100.
That was cool. That was cool.
That was the best part of the movie for me.
I will say that again, if this movie was if Kung Lao and Liu Kang were your protagonists, it would have been 100% more infinitely interesting movie because they were of the protagonists. They were the two most interesting protagonists. And they're like when Kung Lao enters the movie,
but that body was incredible. Like that scene where he takes his like he's just fighting in the pit. Like they're fighting in the pit, and then like Kano's like, "Put a shirt on, man." It's like, my God, you got ripped for this one scene. That's more than Marvel has done in any movie.
Yeah.
That guy was shredded. That guy
Yeah.
was in Power Rangers. He was the Black Ranger.
Yeah.
I know Devin would say that if he was here, but he's not.
Yeah.
That was the Black Ranger in Power Rangers. And I thought he had a very like dry, wooden performance. But that actually played in the comedic aspect of the movie for me, where he was just like dry and comedic, like just very dry the whole entire time. But I laughed at it, like, oh, this guy's like not saying anything, but he's saying things. He's there for exposition only.
For me, I feel like I'm the opposite of most people. I actually didn't think the story was all that terrible. Like for what they were going for, I thought it was fine. As someone who doesn't
Solo, like for a Star Wars comparison,
like as somebody who barely knows anything about Mortal Kombat lore, I thought Louis Tan as Cole Young fit in perfectly.
Yeah.
Like it and I don't know if these are things that are in the games prior, but like the explanation of as to why everybody has a superpower. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. I'm down with that. That's reasonable.
A good 5-minute explanation.
Like, yeah, like it's nothing intense.
What
but
about
it makes
Sub-Zero,
sense
though?
as to
Do
why.
you like Sub-Zero? Because I thought the way they handled Sub-Zero as like this horror movie character where the ice shows up and then Sub-Zero shows up, I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, I thought it was really good.
50 on it. I liked him in the first half. I think I feel like in the first act and the third act he's really well utilized. I think they 100% dropped the ball with him in the second act. He's just kind of just there, just standing in the second act, and I'm like, okay.
That's what all the villains are.
I want to ask you, JD. You seem like you've played a lot of Mortal Kombat games. Like, have you played like all the Mortal Kombat games? You seem like
I've played a handful. I would say I'm above average. I knew a lot of the characters that were in here. Yeah. There are a lot of the later games I have not played as much. Yeah. But a lot of the early 2000s games, late 2000s games, I've definitely played. But
I'm the opposite with you. So like this movie, just speaking as the movie goes, what it was on surface level, this made me like, I watched this movie, and then after this movie, I wanted to play Mortal Kombat. Like, so if this is what like they're trying to do with this movie, like get people to play Mortal Kombat, that worked for me. Because like my only introduction to Mortal Kombat was like arcade, like cabinet games, and Injustice, DC versus Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I played DC versus Mortal Kombat. Yeah. DC versus Mortal Kombat was the last Mortal Kombat game I played.
Yeah. And I like it because the Joker like is like he hears about Shere Khan and he's like Khan, which is a Star Trek reference. I did mention Star Trek people. But yeah, I loved this movie. I'm not a fanboy of Mortal Kombat. Like I played them, but as far as this movie goes, this movie had everything I needed for like a straight.
I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of the first one. I will admit it. I'm a huge fan of the first Mortal Kombat movie. Okay. Of the first Mortal Kombat movie. Yeah. The games, as I said, I'm similar to you when it comes to the games. I've played a lot of them. I'm aware of the lore. I'm not a. It said there are a lot of characters that I know. There's also a lot of characters that I know come later that I don't know.
What I think was wise about like leaving out the tournament, like where they talk about the tournament. It seems very video game.
I think my problem. I would have been fine if they left out the tournament if they didn't mention it so much and tease it so much. I think that's my biggest problem with them not doing the tournament is they teased it so much. Because they teased it so much and then they're like, oh, sequel. And then that's kind of where you're going. I just kind of felt disappointed. If they hadn't if that was just the backstory, like why he was. If they just mentioned that in the story and that's why they're killing people, and then they don't mention it again, then I would have been fine.
So what do you think was the best fight of the movie? Just because I think you're the most like passionate among us. Like, what do you think was the best fight of the movie? Because I think the best fight of the movie was
I
Kano
will point out I've not seen Mortal Kombat yet. So.
Yeah,
Yeah, can we not? It's been out
I
less
won't
than a
gi- I
week.
won't
Let's
give
not
I won't
spoil
give
it.
I won't give spoilers. I will say
yeah. Sorry, I didn't know that.
it comes. There are like 3 fights that I think are very
Mhm.
very fantastic.
And there are
I
a
think
lot
the-
of fights.
I think the initial, the opening scene of
Mhm.
pre-Scorpion and pre-Sub-Zero.
great. Yeah.
I think that was a great opener. I think actually Prince Gordo versus Cole was actually a pretty good fight because
Yeah,
that
no, it wasn't bad. I would
established
put that in top 3.
what
I would have put that in top 3. Yeah.
of this particular movie. I would put it in the top 3 because that 100% established that Cole is a threat that
Yeah.
they're making him out to be. So I
Did
feel
you like Malcolm, block your ears for a second.
No,
Did
no,
you
no! Don't
like
don't say it! Don't say it!
Okay.
and then
So we
and
see
then
in other superhero movies of how energy, kinetic energy. Did you like that?
yes, I did.
Okay, thank you.
I did like that. And again, as I said, I think the reason I like the Gordo fight is because, again, going back, what I do remember from Mortal Kombat games and, Mortal Kombat games, Gordo was like the character that you would play if you just wanted to beat everybody.
Yeah.
So, like, to me, that's why, again, I give a bit
And
more
it's the forearm,
credit.
in case anybody doesn't know.
That's why I give a bit more credit to that fight than a lot of other people do, because that is the fact that he was able to, once he found out power, to beat him so handily, that establishes Cole as somebody that shouldn't be messed with. And I kind of liked it from that perspective.
And in case people don't know, Cole is a character, and you can interpret this from the trailers and the games. He was a character that was not in the games.
No,
that
he's a
they
completely
made
new character.
That's necessary.
I do feel that was a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm 50-50 on the ultimate twist that they do with the character, but I think it ultimately it works well enough, even though they had that twister kind of tweak the lore a bit in order to fit it in. But
the twist confused me because even with the trailer, it seems like this guy is Scorpion, and it may not turn out that way. But I think there were 3 definitive fights in the movie. There are a bunch of great fights in the movie. I think this is a movie that definitely deserves a sequel. This is the only reason why, I was watching you guys on YouTube, and it came in because as soon as I saw Mortal Kombat, I'm like, I watched that today with my dad, and it was just like the most ridiculous thing in the world. I loved it.
Yeah. And I will say the other fight that I think was fantastic is actually the last fight. I think the last fight between Scorpion versus Cole versus Sub-Zero is a great fight.
So even as a surface level fan, were you not saying every line?
Oh yes,
that was the best part of the movie.
Fatality.
Yeah, fatality.
And when 100% at the end of the credits, when
victory.
When the music played at the end of the movie, Mortal Kombat.
Oh God, yeah. That thing makes me want to I would play the end credits. There's no end credit scene in Mortal Kombat, but you could literally play that end credit sequence every single day, and it just gets you flowing. Fight. If you've ever played a Mortal Kombat game, that thing makes you want to play Mortal Kombat. It's just an incredible thing. I never cared about Mortal Kombat until this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, watch it, guys.
Watch it. It is interesting.
Watch it. Right, reserve judgment for after you watch it. Watch it as it is meant to be seen, which is just all out fight gore stuff. The story is secondary. The fight is primary.
I was
gonna say we spent a lot of time on it just to
try
and because we're at the 2-hour mark, so we're gonna have to start wrapping up. Just to steer back to one of the things that I think is worth mentioning. When it was announced a couple of years ago, I never saw it. I didn't get why the Meg was getting a sequel outside of the fact that it did make money. That when I first heard about that movie, and again, I want to keep this all brief because we're over the 2-hour mark now. But when I first heard about that movie, I was interested because it was Eli Roth that was supposed to direct it, and I'm just, as someone who has so long been in the horror space, anything he does that steps outside of it very much intrigues me. That's why I'm really in the cast as well, but I'm really intrigued by Borderlands because again, it's him doing something different finally. But when he left, and John Turteltaub, who for those who don't know is the genius behind mediocrity like National Treasure, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, and fucking G-Force, I was just like, yeah, okay, this movie's gonna be middling.
National Treasure.
Yeah, he did do the first one.
That's a great movie.
It's good. But the point being, that was 2004, and that's probably his best film. So, middling at best director, and from what I heard, the movie was middling at best. I did not care about a sequel because, again, at the time, John Turteltaub was attached, and it's just like, I don't care. But the fact that it's no longer him, it's Ben Wheatley, who, say what you want, I don't love all of his films, but all of his films that I have seen, I think he's a very intriguing director. I thought Free Fire was an insanely interesting concept for a film. It's not perfect, but I thought it was a really interesting concept.
Yeah.
And so
the actors make that movie. So Brie Larson and Cillian Murphy, they're the ones that make that movie.
I also just saw his most recent movie in
he has a
theater
horror film.
in the Earth, which is also an interesting movie. It's not it's not a perfect movie, but I did find a lot of the idea. I find him a fascinating filmmaker, and
I do have to mention James Wan produced Mortal Kombat, even if it is just like a smidge. Like that's something that I noticed in the credits. Like I didn't know James Wan did this.
Yes, he's the reason that movie got made.
And he did the first Saw, which was good. The other Saws are meh.
So to get away from Mortal Kombat, the fact that
I just want Mortal Kombat. Sorry.
The fact that this Meg movie now has Ben Wheatley, who has been around for a number of years, but never really attempted to step into blockbuster filmmaking. And as I did mention in the story, he was attached to the Tomb Raider sequel, which is a weird enough choice in and of itself.
Open the tomb!
The fact that he left that to take over this movie means either they gave him a lot of creative control or whatever script they had was interesting enough this time around to make him want to come into it. And that alone is what intrigues me enough to make it.
Did they mention any casting on the sequel?
Just Statham.
Just Statham?
I will say that I will say that I did actually like the first movie a lot. I am somebody who
I did too.
I did enjoy the first movie a lot. Take the Li Bingbing kind of fact that they were doing a lot of close-up shots because she doesn't speak English the greatest.
You like the Naboo?
I had a lot of fun with that movie.
Like the Naboo Starfighter submarines. That's what I thought as soon as I saw those like submarine vehicles. Like those are Naboo Starfighters that are underwater.
And I wish the trailers actually. I think the trailers actually gave too much away. I think I felt the marketing was part of the problem because again, slight spoilers for the Meg real quick. Part of the movie, the first half of the movie is you're questioning whether or not Jason Statham is a madman for seeing a huge shark.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's part of the setup is you don't. The whole like first half, a lot of the people on the ship is don't trust him because he's the only one that saw the Meg and an encounter several years ago, and so
and
you
they're
feel,
also
again
all
a lot of people
where he's like a mercenary.
Yeah, again, a lot of the times you don't know if he's a madman or not, but again, the trailers have already confirmed. Oh no, he's not a madman. And he's actually, you should be listening to him. So it kind of ruined like the whole first half of that movie.
Yeah. And I think Statham isn't even the best part of that movie where I don't know the supporting actor's name. He's been in things like Hobbs and Shaw. He was in Dr. Sleep. What's that? I'm sorry, I don't know his name. The actor, the supporting role, he played like Jason Statham's friend. he's really good in everything that he's in. He was in Hobbs and Shaw. He played Hobbs's brother. He's the part of that movie that I
I'll
really
look it up.
like.
Cliff Curtis?
That might be it. Ruby Rose was also in that movie. Rainn Wilson, Star Trek Discovery alum. I have to mention it.
Yeah, it's Cliff Curtis. It's
yeah.
Cliff Curtis. He played Hobbs's brother. One of the
He's
brothers.
great in everything I see him in. I have never seen him in something where I'm like, I don't like that guy. He's been great in everything I've seen him in, even bad movies.
Yeah. So before we close up shop,
New Zealander, so.
Before we close up shop, Matt, Malcolm, I'll go to you guys on this one last topic because you guys have been there for a little bit. Any thoughts on this before we close up?
I mean, I went into the big without having seen any marketing, and I thought it was just a really boring movie. Why is it? I do not get why it's a sequel. I don't care. I'm actually really excited for Son of Kong if that ever happens, because King Kong is much better than the Godzilla movies. And that put that out there.
And Matt, final thoughts before we close up shop. You're silent.
You're muted.
Okay. I have no thoughts on the Meg because I was not a fan of the Meg, and I completely forgot about the Meg and what happens in it, so I don't have any thoughts. I will say, while yes, Kong Skull Island was better, Godzilla is the king of the monsters.
And a decent
That is
solid
what the tagline says.
And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up the show, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll go around the horn. JD, thank you so much for coming on, man. Glad we could cash in that Schmo Talks prize, get you on here. Where can the people find you?
You can follow me at JD Domash on Twitter. I do a lot of fan league stuff, and again, occasionally I pop up on some shows. You can find all my appearances on there.
Malcolm, plug yourself, man. Where can the good people find you?
You can find me over on Tape 2 Productions, where I host Rankum every Saturday night. We just recently did Best Director Oscar winners, which apparently we had already done once before. But I'll have a poll up in a bit with the topics you can pick from next week. And you can find me over on Full Metal. I host Full Metal Classic on Sundays and Full Metal Random on Tuesdays. I think this is with a Black Books match.
Nikki, where can the people find you?
You can find me in Existential Crisis on Infinite Earths with John Walker's Shield. Sorry guys, I couldn't join you for the whole show tonight. But I saw Mortal Kombat. I was watching along in the chat, and I saw Mortal Kombat. I just had to jump in because I watched that movie earlier, and that movie made me feel alive. So good to see you guys. I'll see you next week on TMG After Dark.
Absolutely. And are you, this is something we can get into, but May the 4th, the Bad Batch begins. Are you going to be putting something up for it?
We will be doing a Bad Batch breakdown. I've already started a preview episode for our review show. I'm going to kind of do a preview show for all the things. I'll send that to you, Maddie. But all the things about what we already know about the show as far as like Echo, Wrecker, the characters that we already know, because believe it or not, this Bad Batch show, I've been prepared for this for like the past 5 years, because if people don't know, this is one of that Bad Batch arc in the Clone Wars. They released that as previs years ago. So I was always confused that they released that Bad Batch arc, but now I know why, because they wanted to do a spinoff with it. So that was the reason they released an arc. There's a Crystal Crisis arc that I can talk about in my video. I should be seeing that on a Monday before May the 4th, and then I'll do a May the 4th breakdown of our Bad Batch episode recap. So we'll get that.
Absolutely. And regularly, just like the show, those will be going up every Friday, with the second episode going up May 7th. Mr. Beer, where can we find you?
We'll get a special Tuesday episode this week, but then every Friday after that.
Yes.
Where can people find you?
All right. So you guys can find me on the show. We do it every Saturday. In case you don't realize, unless you live in a different country, it is Saturday. So that's when you can find me on the show.
For Malcolm, it is Sunday.
It is Sunday.
Sundays for some, Saturday
Malcolm
for
in New
others,
Zealand, which I
and,
remember from last week.
Fridays. True. And then you can also
In the
see
UK,
me
right?
on wait, what about I'm so confused.
You weren't here.
UK.
There was confusion about where Malcolm lived.
Oh, okay. I get it. Okay. I wasn't too sure.
I made the mistake of calling him Euro trash for a second.
Right. But you can also find me
I
on
love all for European people.
Right. Yeah, I do too. I'm European, kind of. You can also find me on Canceled the Show with Alan. We had a lot of problems last week trying to get it on. We couldn't hear each other. I thought they were trying to cancel us, but they didn't. So you can find me on that show. And then also, we've had some people on already, but you can subscribe to the other channel, Inside the Horseshoe podcast. Look at all this stuff. We're up to 127 subscribers in a month. Look at that. Look at all this content. You
Who's
can
the
check out.
starting quarterbacks of the Colts
Who's
right
the starting
now?
quarterback?
Yeah.
It's Carson Wentz.
Who?
Carson Wentz.
I've never heard of him.
Well, he
Neither.
played for the Eagles for I think 5 years.
Last starting
Yeah,
quarterback
they draft-
that I knew was Peyton Manning. I have a Peyton Manning jersey in my closet. I love him.
Well, we had Peyton for a while, and then Andrew Luck was after him.
Yeah, he's good.
Jacoby Brissett started for a year because Andrew Luck retired early. And then we had Phillip Rivers last year, and then this year we have Carson Wentz.
Rivers is good.
Yeah, he was really good this year.
I was a Colts fan when I was a kid, and it made me very unpopular at school.
Well, you know, Star Wars was unpopular for me when I was a kid, but we all know Star Wars is cool.
As I said, I was a huge Jurassic Park fan, and
Rawr.
And with that, you guys can check out everything that we do here on TMG Entertainment. We have shows going most days all week. Obviously, as was said, and once again, the outro will be slightly outdated. We'll get an updated one by next week, hopefully. But every single Saturday at 9 p.m. EST, we have After Dark, so be sure to tune in and check that out. Tomorrow at noon EST, we have the Supernova Show. I actually joined Colton Roberts this week. We talk about all the latest not the latest necessarily, but we discussed some geeky shit. So if you're into geeky shit, check that out. On Mondays at 7 p.m. EST, we have Schmo Talks going up. I've still yet to publicly announce what I've been working on. I just keep putting up cryptic posts saying that I'm working on some sort of project, but you guys will find that out by tomorrow. What that will be, that will go up on Monday night. Tuesday afternoon, we have Canceled This Show, as Matt said. And then now every Fridays, we will have Bad Batch reviews ran by Nikki with that special extra episode on Tuesday this week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching. Please be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you guys next time on After Dark.